Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Supply Chain Podcast. My name is Tom Raftery, and with me on the show today, I have my special guest, Rick. Rick, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Appreciate your time. Rick Tellez, founder of KlearNow in logistics. Looking forward to our discussion today.
Superb. So, for people who may be unaware, Rick, I know we had an intro call, but for people who weren't on that intro call, what's KlearNow?
KlearNow is a digital software company designed and built for logistics and supply chain. We are very unique in the sense that we were the first ones to really implement AI, which is artificial intelligence techniques, into our proprietary software that allows us to essentially remove your historical data entry type work that was required throughout the bottlenecks within the supply chain whenever you're importing goods into a country. So we specifically started out with a niche area as customs brokerage. And with our broker network, we're able to service many clients. Since then, we've grown and expanded into other areas, which I look forward to getting into.
Okay, superb. And what was the genesis story of KlearNow? How did you, wake up one morning and go, I know, let's start a company to help out customs brokers?
Yeah, no, it's a funny story. I think a lot of times these are often mother is the necessity of invention, or however the saying goes, right? Or necessity is the mother of invention. I mean, I was working for DHL, large, let's face it, maybe the largest logistics company in the world. I've been working with many divisions of the company, had a tremendous experience. I mean, from anywhere from operations to labor relations to performance improvement for efficiency within the network. It was the engineering group, as well as sales, customs. I mean, it was really everything you could imagine, hub and spoke network, you name it. And it was interesting to, when I finally started consulting with large organizations, importers, that, letting them know what the best way to move goods was, right? Where you should set up your manufacturing, what, country pairing was best for their commodity, meaning was there a specific trade agreement between Taiwan and the United States for what they're manufacturing? Was it better done in China? So a lot of these things that you would try to, help importers find the best route, most efficient, cost-effective way of doing things. And along the journey, learned that, each of our divisions was really supporting the efforts of customs clearance in a different way, right? And none of them were optimal. It was often, you had to throw bodies at it, human beings. You'd have to customize SOPs. Well, you'd have to do a lot of labor-intensive work in order to accomplish what it was that the importer was really looking for. Oftentimes you have a square box and you say, listen, importer, this is what I have to offer. This is all there is. You kind of take it or leave it. But the larger ones you had to customize, right? There was really no way around it if you wanted to win the business. And obviously that increases the price of what the customer was going to have to pay. And so, one afternoon, it was almost one of those things, the light bulb goes off. And, I'm living in San Francisco at the time. And, I'm selling to technology companies. I'm surrounded by engineers at coffee shops and social networking and things like that. And hearing about the latest technology that they've, developed for other areas and other industries. And it was fascinating. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And it just says, listen, I mean, we were so far behind. There has to be a better way to do what it is we were doing. And when it comes to customs clearance, all of the paperwork, all of the, let's call it links in the chain that you would have to make phone calls, emails, communication to every siloed individual and entity out there, it's mind-boggling. And it's clearly a problem, was a problem in the industry that we feel we've solved. And, so it again, that was really the genesis. And, I took the idea to Ulf and Sam. They couldn't believe that companies, billion-dollar companies, hadn't solved these problems already, and but obviously they hadn't, which was good for us at the time, right? So the three of us, Ulf with the engineering background, Sam with the business acumen and financial background, it was really, we felt the trifecta of being able to culminate, the subject matter, the technology, and the business all together in one, and really, create a valuable and sustainable business.
Okay. And can you walk us through how KlearNow's AI-powered platform works and what sets it apart from other solutions in the market?
Sure. So if you can imagine, you probably have seen, right? There's a ton of technology companies out there. I think it's starting to catch on. The digitization, let's call it the paperwork. They want to get rid of the paperwork, so everybody's talking about ingesting or converting documents into data, that type of thing. So I think that's fairly standard lingo and language out there today. In the past, what it was, and some with what it is today, for some of those is an old OCR type technology. On top of it is an RPA robotics, kind of match type thing, right? And
Yep.
we knew from the very beginning that that was not the path for scale and sustainability. The sheer mass amount of different, let's say, different types of documents, different formats, right? It's going to be impossible to see every single one of them and then customize the OCR for that particular format. And so what you needed to have was an artificial intelligence that could actually read the document, to categorize it, to identify all of the labels, to identify the content that are below or within those labels. And that's what we had really set out to do. And that was the nut that we cracked. So when we say our AI and how we're differentiated, it's truly because we are able to, there aren't bounding boxes, there aren't, what they call quadrants. None of that is what we are limited by, right? So we were able to actually look at the complete comprehensive document and capture all of the data within that document. And what's interesting is we have all of it, right? You may not, and what ends up being, ultimately a data lake, you may not use it all, right? But you have it all. So really for the importer, the difference is, you may only need, for an ISF, for example, 10+2 data fields. Well, that's fantastic, right? But what happens in the future when you need 75 different data points, or a 3PL needs 150 different data points? It's always this cycle that they're in, trying to find, okay, well, let's go capture those. Our software has 100% of it captured up front. And really the genius behind it and what we've solved is you have now digital data from all of those documents or data feeds, and we've automated the workflows. So it becomes more of a proactive and artificial intelligence driven communication, if you will, with all of the parties involved in the supply chain. So we're the first ones that have really, we feel, that have cracked the code and are providing value in the market in a different way.
Okay. And there's a huge amount of talk lately in the press and everywhere else about AI, particularly with the ChatGPT tool that has come on the market since last November. And literally, I just published an episode of the podcast around ChatGPT and supply chain recently. Will that have any implications for KlearNow? Are you planning on working with it, or do you think it's not necessary, that you're way beyond that already?
Oh, I think it's amazing the fact that that is now, at the forefront today, right? Because when we first started, we couldn't talk about really in depth the AI component, right? It really wasn't something that our industry or the folks that we were trying to sell to were up on the latest and greatest, right? It just was a matter of, they haven't been exposed to it, so you wouldn't know it, right?
Sure.
And so the fact that ChatGPT is out and it's all of the talk, and, from Wall Street to Main Street, everybody's talking about it and what the implications are. And it's fascinating. It's brilliant technology, it becomes relevant, right? So
Yeah.
we're actually, you'll probably be the first to hear, Tom. Our rebranding is going to be, we're releasing it later on this week, but we're going to be doing business as KlearNow.ai. And the point of that is that AI has always been used. That's always been our secret sauce. It's always been our backbone, if you will. But now that it's an accepted and mainstream discussion, it's not scary for us to now go to importers and talk about it, right? Because let's face it, a digital network, a digital platform that is automating workflows, that's creating digital data and providing value to the customer for customs brokerage or customs clearance, that was a difficult concept to grasp, without it, right? I mean, let's face
Sure.
it's not too long ago that we had fax machines, some still do, and it's phone calls and emails, right? I mean,
Yeah.
one shipment to import from China could take you, 25 emails. And I hope you weren't all sick that day because, you're talking about other bottlenecks, right? And
Yeah.
so I think, our secret, and again, it's AI. Now is the time that we can discuss it and talk about it and be open. And it's something that is now accepted. So we're excited about it. I don't fear it. There's a lot of, sci-fi stuff out there. I think we'll leave that to them. But I think the practical application of how it can support companies and importers and the trade community across borders, I think it's going to be fascinating, right? I think that you can apply AI, and let's face it, you have to have a data source, right? And all the chat GPTs of the world, they have access to public data, and anybody that gives them access, sure, whether they know it or not. Our system is providing that technology for the user that owns it, right? So it's not going to be spread, shared, and out in the open. So ours is a secure AI network that is for the importer themselves. So it's dedicated to our customers, our clients, and for their purposes only. So it's not something that we're actually going to be sharing with any AI type communities that would have access and be able to then learn them and train their models on. It's for our model and it's for our customers.
Okay, that brings me nicely on to the next question I was going to ask, actually, is how do you ensure data privacy and security for your clients?
Yeah, no, it's obviously the heightened security awareness out there. We've seen some of our let's face it, some of the largest companies in the logistics industry. You've probably seen it, and I'm sure everybody's aware of in the news. The breaches where they've been hacked, held hostage. I mean, and you're talking, these are customs brokerage companies, right? And unfortunately, the on-prem, that type of old data model that they were operating on, it's anybody susceptible, but certainly that leaves it more. And I think the fact that we're cloud-based, that we are operating on the backbone, well, quite frankly, can be any, right? AWS, Azure, it doesn't matter. We can, duplicate it on any platform or cloud if we had to. But today we're on AWS, and that security backbone on top of what we've implemented. I think I think if you did any kind of research on KlearNow, you'll see that an early investor as well as board member Atik Raza, part of Versec, which is an incredible technology firm for security. They are, up on the latest of preventing these type of hacks, and that's the type of technology that we've embedded in our platform to protect our data and our customers, because we know that that's the holy grail, right? We
Yeah.
cannot have any loose ends on that side. So we've been very diligent about that part, and we want to make sure that our customers feel very comfortable about it.
Yeah, because people will forgive downtime, but they will not forgive an issue with their data.
That's true.
So, next question, seeing as you are using a lot of AI, does that mean you're going to put loads of customs brokers out of work?
No, I mean, that's always the first question. That's always the first question people ask. Oh, what about the broker? And quite frankly, I would describe it as maybe the opposite, right? I think any of I think the history of our customs brokerage in the country, and at least in the United States, You face it. We used to have a broker in every port, right? I mean, you're talking about a clipboard and a pen. And
Right.
that's why you had to have that individual local, because the goods that were coming into that port had to be inspected, had to be, transmitted, the paperwork had to be exchanged at that port. So the original premise was you needed somebody everywhere. And then the US, of course, went to national permits, which allowed a broker that was, let's say, in Portland or in LA, they could file in Florida without using a partner. Everybody, the brokerage community really used to band together, and they would trade, right? They would say, you handle my Florida business, I'll handle your California business. And they could do that. A lot of legislation and a lot of things have changed since then. Let's face it, this POA update that's really been prevalent in the customs community, which is the need to make sure that you have an importer of record signed directly with the broker. That's the enforcement of that. That's new, right? It used to be you could have a freight forwarder have an umbrella POA that they could then sub it out to, 5, 10, 20 other brokers if they wished. And now that the regulations clearly state, no, the relationship has to be between an importer of record and the customs broker, it is what it is. That's the change. And so our network supports that, right? That doesn't affect us at all. It actually is one of our strengths. And so when I look at, where we've got your customs brokers and the need for that direct relationship, you see a lot of large companies buying them up. Okay.
Right.
So can a small niche white glove customs brokerage firm compete with the giants, the elephants out there, right? I mean, you've got your major Livingstons, your major Expeditors, your DSC. You've got huge companies that do a fantastic job at what they do, right? And I never want to discount any of these large companies, because I worked for one, right? And what they do incredibly well. It's a difficult thing to move freight from point A to point B, as simple as it sounds. But that being said, these larger companies would buy up the smaller brokerage firms. And the smaller brokerage firms would quickly lose business because they couldn't offer the technology, maybe, right? So they couldn't offer a track and trace. They couldn't offer a website, the UI, the experience that a customer, an importer really has come to expect. That takes a lot of money. It takes capital, right? And it takes sales and marketing. Small brokerage firms can't afford to do that. That was word of mouth business. That was, and so when people ask me if we're going to put brokers out of business, actually, it's the opposite. I can give a one man or one woman show the power and ability to compete at par and better than the largest companies in the world. They will have better technology at their fingertips. They will be able to offer their customers digital data, right? They'll be able to offer them a track and trace, and, let's face it, a journey that no other freight forwarder or company can offer today. It takes many pieces of software to all stitch together in order to provide what we do in one platform. So this small broker can, that maybe has 12 clients, they can provide a better service than what a large multinational company in the market can provide. So, and we haven't even touched then on the efficiency, right? Where it used to take them, up to 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, depending on complexity and how many lines, to type all of that information in, to have them understand that they can do the job in less than 7 minutes for, the same job. And so we can allow them to scale. We can allow them to do more with less. We can allow them to perform better and give them let's face it, a better work-life balance, because they won't require all of the manual effort that they used to have to apply in the past. So we're giving brokers the ability to compete and actually win business that quite frankly they've lost in the past. And that's what some of the feedback has been from some of our brokers.
Very nice. Very nice. And is there a data story here as well? Because you are dealing with a lot of data, and obviously you are changing the story for the customs brokers, whereas previously it might have been quite a paper-based solution. Now it's digitized, so you're presumably giving them access to a lot of data as well.
100%, right? And so for that particular broker, they had access to the data before, the importer had access to the data before, we are able to provide that data and reporting and analysis to the responsible parties. And we limit it to that, right? I mean, it's not a situation of providing it or selling it outside of our platform. So I think what's nice about the platform is that the data has always been there. It's always been on a piece of paper, right? And it would really take somebody to transfer that information into an Excel spreadsheet, run reports, create a pivot table, the typical thing. But what we have enabled through our technology is that data now is there for the importer to do with what they want, right? If they'd like to create a customized report, they can do that without an IT team or a team that says, all right, I need you to figure out how to piece all of these things together, put it in a nice, beautiful spreadsheet that I can then take a screenshot of, put it on a PowerPoint and present it to a board. No, we're actually providing importers the ability, and this is a really cool part. We are providing importers the ability to use natural language requests, much like a Google, right? You type in what you're looking for and it will produce a result, right? And so we've partnered with a company called ThoughtSpot. And, I'm sure listeners and viewers can do a bit of research on them, but they are on the forefront of technology and business intelligence, allowing companies to do more with their data that wasn't possible before. And so by having that embedded in our software, it gives the importer the ability to do something that they've never been able to do easily. I mean, let's face it, by the time those spreadsheets were all accumulated and patched together from 15 sources in 5 countries and 20 different companies, it was already stale, right? It was already stale data. It wasn't even current. This stuff is real time. It's happening. You can see it as the shipment gets cleared. You'll be able to run a report and say, the number has changed a minute from now. So no, really good stuff that we've done. And again, it's all value that we are providing to the importers and to our brokers, our broker partners.
And where to from here? I mean, what can we expect from yourself and the industry in the coming years?
Yeah, I think, the really neat thing about what we've done, and I think where the future is going, is really that collaboration, right? It's about automating those workflows. It's about being proactive with everything that's required. Whether you're on the left side or the right side of globalization and what it takes, there's always going to be goods moving throughout countries and going across borders, one way or another, right? It's the nature of the world. You cannot manufacture and create everything to service your community and citizens, right? I mean, it's impossible. The UK was a great example with Brexit. When that happened, and again, it's not right or wrong. It is just simply something that happened, right? That they made a decision for their country. But what that did was it created a change in how things were going to cross borders. Well, with technologies like ours, it didn't matter that before, there were 20 million transactions a year, and now there were going to be 250 million transactions a year. That number didn't matter to KlearNow, right? Because we could scale. And so it didn't mean that we had to then, all of these companies that were based in the UK, they literally had to go hire more data entry clerks, right? They had to find as many people, they had to train them, they had to teach them. You can only imagine. And it's still, there's no way that there's going to be enough human beings to data enter that many documents, right? So the bottom line is that as these changes take place and the variables move around, it's going to require a nimble technology that can adapt. And that when business rules change, meaning a trade agreement changes, instantly the platform is updated. Right. So this is all, it's taking care of all of that for you as an importer. And so what I see for the future is really going to be those proactive and automated workflows where we're not reacting to a phone call or to an email. It's the software and the technology that is allowing all of the parties to collaborate digitally. The owner of the data can provide access to it to different personas if they want to, right? You can give some to your TMS. You can give some to your 3PL, you can give some to your freight forwarder, your broker. It can be shared, and then they can add value to it, add documents and add data to it, but it's all your data and much like a control tower. And so I think the future is going to be around collaboration. There's been a lot of talk in the past about blockchain. It was a little early. I think we're still a ways off, but the concept of having data in one area that people can use and leverage was sound. It was just a matter of, could you get all of those parties to agree? It's a difficult thing.
Mhm.
What we've been able to do is give that centralized data concept to the owner of it, which is the importer of record or our customer, which could be a freight forwarder or broker. But bottom line is they now have that data that they can use as necessary.
Cool. And do you have any customer success stories you can speak to?
Well, we do have a couple of multinationals, which unfortunately I did not get their permission before the call, but I'll speak of one in particular, a chemicals type company that makes a lot of things better. It was really one of those aha moments, and it really gave us validation in it, and it made me feel incredible inside, right? I mean, it was one of those validation things where their entire global team was exposed and shared the platform with them, um, and they understood. And they instantly got it. They saw the vision. They're actually on the forefront of doing something that I think a lot of multinationals are going to start moving towards, which is going to this digital data centric type platform, which is what we are. And they're on the forefront of it. And they have quickly taken this, said they recognize the value, they recognize the savings, they recognize, the power of that data that they can leverage globally, and centralized reporting and data analytics. Everything is there for them. So for them, it was a matter of, let's prove in the United States where we started, and then slowly to Canada, then to UK, Netherlands. And I mean, we are just division by division being able to help support their many different business units and divisions of that company. But it's one of those things where a huge validation and a nod to the incredible work that our engineers, that our customer success team does, our sales team does, all of the hard work that everyone put in over the past few years has really gotten that seal of approval from some very large companies this year and late last year, which is fascinating to me, and we're excited to be able to share it.
Fantastic. We're coming towards the end of the podcast now, Rick. Is there any question that I have not asked that you wish I had, or any aspect of this that we haven't touched on that you think it's important for people to think about?
Well, I think the one thing I thought of, we may have touched upon it briefly, was around labor shortages, right? And that's a big topic, and something that we've seen globally. It's not just something in the United States, right? And so to really, I guess, address that unique situation is, again, being able to do more with less. We came from a background of logistics, which meant that we understood that unfortunately the logistics department wasn't always the most well funded, right? It it never really made it to a boardroom discussion. It was more of, how hard can it be to get something from point A to point B? Go do it. And you're only going to get a couple of people, right? And the software we're going to give you, well, what's the cheapest available? Like, it really wasn't something that a lot of thought was put into. It's not right or wrong. It's just the way it was. And fortunately, the things that have occurred, when it's COVID, when it's government shutdowns, when it's recessions, when everything that we've seen and been through as a company already, which quite frankly, for a startup and a technology company to not only survive but thrive, I think again is a testimony to the hard work that our employees have done. But that idea that we're able to allow our customers to do more with less means, it doesn't mean that, like you mentioned earlier, putting brokers out of business. It means that they can have a better work-life balance. It means that they can take a day off, where in the past it was again, one of our first customers was one man in a warehouse with the space heater on the floor, and an L desk with 4 monitors. And the guy would, he was incredible at what he did. He was a wizard, right? He had spreadsheets on each of them. He had sticky notes with user IDs and passwords. I mean, it was amazing to watch him work. But if that guy wasn't there, what was going to happen? And so what we've done is, it's not all of a sudden the company said, oh, well, we can afford to, hire 5 more people and help this person out. No, we were able to give him a tool that, he only needed 1 monitor, and he could take some time off if he so choose, that he didn't feel guilty, because let's face it, he's loyal. He was loyal to the company. I mean, he had grown up in that business, right? Working for that furniture company. And, he had pride in his work. And I think most employees do. They have pride in what they do, and they want to do the best, which is why they take their work home with them, right?
Yeah.
It's why they try to do the extra effort. And what we have provided and what we have done is we've been able to help those individuals do more with less, while providing the company with something that they've never been able to have in the past without having to hire 20 extra people. So I think, addressing that labor shortage concern has been really one of the benefits that I think companies and users themselves didn't recognize prior, but recognize now. Yeah.
We are coming towards the end of the podcast now, Rick. If people would like to know more about yourself or any of the things we discussed in the podcast today, where would you have me direct them?
Yeah, I would have them go to KlearNow.com. You'll find all of our information. You'll find up some bios, as well as more about our products and services and things that we offer. And again, I look forward to the future, and thank you for having me, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Oh, great. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast today.
All right. Cheers.